The study of gender dynamics in ancient societies is an important area of research that helps us to better understand the social, economic, and political roles of men and women in different historical contexts. In this essay, we will examine the role of women in ancient Mesopotamia, which was one of the earliest civilizations in the world, dating back to around 3500 BCE. Mesopotamia, which means land between rivers, in Greek, was located in the area of present-day Iraq and was the birthplace of many important developments in human history, including the invention of writing, the wheel, and the plow. Women in ancient Mesopotamia, an overview. In Mesopotamian society, women were generally expected to fulfill certain roles and responsibilities that were determined by their social status, family background, and economic position. The exact nature of these roles varied over time and depended on factors such as the political climate, the religious beliefs of the society, and the economic conditions of the region. In general, however, women in Mesopotamia were expected to be obedient to male authority, whether it was their father, husband, or other male relatives. They were also expected to bear and raise children, manage the household, and perform various domestic tasks such as cooking, weaving, and spinning. Women who were born into wealthy families might have had access to education and could become priestesses or scribes, but these opportunities were limited and rare. Despite these limitations, there is evidence to suggest that women in Mesopotamia were not completely passive or powerless. For example, there are several references in Mesopotamian literature to women who played important political or religious roles, such as the legendary Queen Semiramis, who was said to have ruled the Assyrian Empire in the 9th century BCE. There were also female deities such as Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, who was worshipped throughout Mesopotamia and had many important cult centers and temples dedicated to her. Gender roles in Mesopotamian law. One of the most important sources of information about the roles of women in Mesopotamia comes from the law codes that were created by various rulers and city-states throughout the region. These law codes, which date back to the 3rd millennium BCE, provide us with valuable insights into the legal status of women and the gender roles that were enforced by the state. For example, the Code of Hammurabi, which was created by the Babylonian king Hammurabi in the 18th century BCE, contains several provisions that deal with the rights and responsibilities of women. These include provisions that protect the rights of women who have been divorced or widowed, regulate marriage contracts, and prescribe penalties for adultery and other forms of sexual misconduct. Another important law code is the Assyrian Law Code, which was created by the Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser I in the 12th century BCE. This code contains provisions that deal with the rights of women in cases of inheritance, property ownership, and marriage. For example, it stipulates that a woman who is widowed or divorced should receive a portion of her husband's estate and that a man who marries a woman without the consent of her father will be punished. Religion and women in Mesopotamia. Religion played an important role in Mesopotamian society and was closely linked to gender roles and expectations. Women played important roles in the religious life of Mesopotamia as priestesses, who were responsible for performing rituals and maintaining the sanctity of the temples. The goddesses of Mesopotamian religion were often depicted as powerful and independent figures who had the ability to grant fertility, protection, and good fortune to their followers. These goddesses were also often associated with specific aspects of femininity, such as love, fertility, childbirth, and the household. For example, the goddess Ishtar was associated with love, sexuality, and war, while the goddess Ninhursag was associated with childbirth, motherhood, and fertility. Priestesses in Mesopotamia played an important role in maintaining the relationship between the people and the gods. They were responsible for performing various rituals and offerings, such as the purification of the temple, the offering of food and drink to the gods, and the celebration of festivals and religious ceremonies. Although the role of priestesses was an important one in Mesopotamian society, it was not open to all women. In order to become a priestess, a woman had to come from a wealthy and influential family, and she had to undergo a rigorous training process that included education in reading, writing, and religious rituals. Priestesses were expected to remain celibate and to dedicate their lives to the service of the gods. Women in Mesopotamian art and literature. Art and literature are important sources of information about the roles of women in ancient Mesopotamia. Through these mediums, we can gain insights into the ways in which women were represented and the roles that they played in society. In Mesopotamian art, women were often depicted in traditional roles, such as caring for children or performing domestic tasks. However, there were also representations of women in more powerful roles, such as queens or priestesses. These depictions suggest that there was some degree of social mobility for women, particularly those from wealthy families. In literature, women were often portrayed as secondary characters, serving to support or enhance the roles of male protagonists. However, there are also examples of strong and independent female characters, such as the goddess Ishtar, who was celebrated for her sexual and martial prowess, and the legendary Queen Semiramis, who was said to have ruled an empire. Gender dynamics and the collapse of Mesopotamian civilization. The collapse of Mesopotamian civilization in the first millennium BCE is often attributed to a combination of factors, including environmental degradation, political instability, and economic decline. However, some scholars have also suggested that gender dynamics may have played a role in the collapse of Mesopotamia. For example, some scholars argue that the patriarchal nature of Mesopotamian society may have contributed to the marginalization of women and the exclusion of their perspectives from political and economic decision-making. This, in turn, may have led to a lack of diversity and innovation in Mesopotamian society, which ultimately contributed to its decline.